Good morning and welcome to the Lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. You're on the boat. I'm a free man these days, which is taking a little time sinking into the dome. It's an unusual feeling. I was telling someone on the phone the other day. This is the first time I think in my life that I haven't had something hanging over my head. It's bizarre, but it's a beautiful feeling. It really is. And I went shopping yesterday. I had to pick up some stuff, and I was in a super Walmart. I had Mama Scoville with me, and I was telling her a story earlier about getting out of prison. When I got out of prison and went to the halfway house, I had to go to Oakland. They don't have a halfway house in Nevada. So if I'd been living here at the time, there were halfway houses right down the street. But I couldn't leave the halfway house because there isn't a halfway house within 100 miles of where I live, which is what the law is. So I had to do over a year in the halfway house. But when I first got a job and I first got paid, they would let you out of the halfway house, but you have a tracker for all intents and purposes. You have your phone, and your phone has to be linked up to them so that they can see where you are. And if you deviate from where you're supposed to be going, you're in trouble. And obviously, people leave their phones places or whatever. But I was living a very legit life there. I wasn't doing anything wrong. And I had just gotten a check. And I was putting all the money into cryptocurrency, but I had cash for the first time. I might have been $7 or $8. I didn't much, but I had cash for the first time in my hand in a decade. Almost something like that. And I'm walking by 7-Elevens and things that I could dug into, and they probably wouldn't notice unless they were, looking. And anyway, I passed a street vendor, and the dude was selling bags of cherries like this big. And I was starving. I was on my way to a medical facility that needed to do a blood draw and some other things on me. And I was absolutely starving. I bought that bag and ate the entire thing. Just sat there and ate one cherry after another. Suffice to say, I didn't get any cherries while incarcerated. Buddha Davis, good to see you, my brother. Anik, glad that you're here. Tommy Bird, hello. Charlie Murphy, always a pleasure. And a lot of lurkers. Nothing wrong with lurking, people. Nothing wrong with lurking at all. Let's see something here. Why am I doing that? That makes a lot more sense. Hello, Jenna. Glad that you're here. Balake Richardson, always a pleasure. Full of Hope, good to see you. Glad that you're here. I think Full of Hope might have won last night. If not, she was damn close. 801 was on it. There was a lot of people last night that were really doing well on that trivia. The guy, good to see you. So this subject matter today is this was Lemmy, good to see you. I got something sent to me about psychedelics in Silicon Valley and how prevalent their usage is. Hello, Scoob. Good morning. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. Really, it does. So I got this article on Silicon Valley and just how popular the use of psychedelics are currently in that area of the world. I like that, Tommy. Canavox Recording Library. I'm curious to see where this goes. Well, this should be interesting then. So if you're new to the Lifeboat channel, then this may be something that is a foreign concept. But if you've been here before, you know that in spite of the fact that this is a sobriety channel where we encourage people to not do drugs, I am not anti-drug, and I never have been. I never will be. The vast majority of people that use substances, controlled or otherwise, do so in a fashion that does not lead them down the road that I ended up on. And for those individuals, I don't have any issue at all with people who do drugs. There are an absolute ton of people on the Lifeboat that smoke pot. I don't care. If if pot is ruining their life, if they're if you start needing a substance as a coping mechanism, or you can't live without it, then I think that the drug becomes an issue. But solely on on the face, I don't have a problem with drugs. That sound is really funny because I have a very serious problem with drugs. Opiates being my drug of choice, but I abused everything. And at a very young age, I started doing trip drugs, psychedelics. And my first psychedelic experience was at the age of 15. And I've told the story on the lifeboat before, but I was a naive 15-year-old drug user that did anything. I wanted to try every drug. I don't know exactly what spawned that, but from a young age, right around the time that I smoked pot the first time, which I think I was 13, if I had a chance to try it, I tried it. I wanted to feel what every drug did to the body. And the funny thing about my first experience was I had no clue what I was doing. I had absolutely no clue what I was ingesting. I didn't know at that juncture of my life that psychedelics existed. I didn't know what they were. The sales pitch that the guy that sold me the acid, which it was LSD, it came on blotter. It had the eye of Ra stamped on it, had an Egyptian motif deal, and it had the eye. And so he said to me, "It's just like weed. It's just like weed, but you don't have to smoke it. You just take the thing and put it on your tongue, and you let it sit there, and it just gets you stoned. It's like weed, but you don't have to." And that was the sales pitch. So I bought this hit of acid, going into my first acid trip with absolutely zero preparation at all for what I was getting ready to do. The only thing that I knew was I bought this first period. I did it between first and second period. I had the second class with the guy that sold it to me. And I came in and he was in the front row. He was sitting in the corner. And as I walked in, I went past him. I said, "Hey, man, I took that. How long does it take to hit you?" And the look on his face, he went, "You took it here in school?" I said, "Yeah, I smoked dope in school every day." I knew going into it that I had probably made a decent size error. The look on his face told me that this was probably not the place to do LSD, especially for the first time. The word on Tommy's sweatshirt is Sawanica. It's Sawanica. It is a school, and it is also an Indian tribe. But it's a school on Long Island, very famous for their lacrosse. So that's what that is, Philip. So I ate this second period. By the beginning of third period, I'm just starting to it's starting to come on, and I'm starting to get weird. By fourth period, I'm tripping my balls off. I mean, I'm absolutely destroyed on acid. It's just tearing me in half. And coming over the little loudspeaker that we had in every one of the classrooms, so that if you were me or one of my 5 friends, the principal could call you to his office while you were in class. Really, that's the only reason that little box ever went off. And it was every time you'd hear it, it would make the little like scratching noise that let you know that the microphone had just been turned on. And all of the burnouts, all of the kids in school that did something, you could see everybody going, "Oh no, oh no." And, you know, more times than not, the kid going, "Oh no," and hearing his own name was me. But I get called down to the principal's office and I'm tripping so hard. I remember that walk, and it seemed like it took, 45 minutes to walk from the classroom to the principal's office. And I'm thinking, good God, how do they know? How could they have possibly known that I was tripping? What could have possibly given this away? And as it turns out, he called me down there because I had made a big stink about how bad the food was. And I had done a bunch of complaining and actually got a I had got a audience with the principal at an earlier date. And he said, if you're serious, then you can, there are things that we can do about this, but you have to go about it the right way, blah, blah, blah. And what it came down to is I was supposed to do a survey and ask kids what they thought of the different things that they served. To make a long story short, this is the day that they choose that I've got to hand out these. Basically, they're one sheet of paper. It's just a questionnaire, is what it was. But so I get released to go to lunch. There are 2 lunch periods, and obviously I can't eat at both of them, but I've got a pass to go to the first one so that I can hand these things out. And then I would go to my normal one so I can hand these things out. And I'm standing in the middle of the lunchroom, and there's about 150 kids walking in. And every one of them is coming up and just grabbing a piece of paper off of this stack that I have in my hands like this. And that lasted all of about 20 seconds before I literally just went, threw the thing in the air, turned around, ran out of the cafeteria and out into the air. I decided at that point, I made an executive decision that it would probably be a lot smarter to get in trouble for cutting school than it would be for being on a really heavy drug. And I knew that there was no way if somebody sat me down at that point and talked to me. I mean, the talk with the principal was horrifying, and it had been, several hours later. It was a very, very odd experience, and it was just it was the start of a lot of years of doing psychedelic drugs. I've taken them basically my entire life. The psychedelic drugs come in a variety of shapes and sizes. I am, to this day, obviously, I am not somebody that is. I don't advocate drug use very often. It's not something that I do think that psychedelics have their place. I really do. I know that I get pushback on this, but it is what it is. I'm never going to sit in this chair and say something to you that I'm never going to sit in this chair and say something that I don't mean, and I don't want to advocate drug use. It's not what I'm doing here. But here's why I come down on this side of things. Please be safe, Scoob, and keep your chin up. Tommy Bird says, I always had a decent experience with psychedelics. And you hear this a lot from people. You hear this a lot from people in the drug world, that their experiences with psychedelics are always much different than their experiences with hard drugs or from any of the other stuff that we end up getting addicted to. And the reasons, I think, there's a whole multitude of them. Here's my thought on psychedelics, and you can come down on any side of this that you'd like, and you're never going to cost a friendship or any such thing. And I hope that you would give me the same respect. But here's where I come down on the psychedelics thing. As I've said, even today, I'm not anti-drug. And it's a hard thing to sit in this chair and not be anti-drug. It would be a much easier, gig if I just came out here and thrashed on every substance. It would probably be considerably easier. My problem with chemicals are not the chemicals themselves, but when the chemicals become a coping mechanism, right? A way for people to escape from themselves. And I think that psychedelics give people an opportunity to escape into themselves. I think it's the exact opposite phenomenon. And it's got the added benefit of that do you know a lot of people addicted to LSD? Have you ever met people addicted to psilocybin? Like, I know some people that really love mushrooms, that are about as into shrooms as anyone you're ever going to meet. And it's still not, people super into mushrooms might do them, once or twice a month. It's just not the kind of drug that somebody does 5 or 6 days a week. Because of how psychedelics work in the body, it's almost impossible to even do 2 or 3 days in a row. It's just a very difficult thing to do because of how it releases the chemicals in your brain. If you try to do acid on a Monday and then you try to do it on Tuesday, there's just not much left in there to be released. It's all been, kicked off, and everything that was going to happen has happened. And, I spent a lot of time in and around the Grateful Dead tours, and I saw a lot of people eat a lot of acid, and I ate a lot of acid. And I remember times where, you'd have a couple of sheets or whatever on the road, and you'd start by eating 3 or 4 hits at the beginning of a show. And, 2 days later of continuing to eat acid, you're eating 30 and 40 hits trying to figure out a way to, trying to figure out a way to keep catching a buzz. And it doesn't matter at that point how much of it you eat. M. Hunt says, I haven't microdosed in a month, and I'm still reaping the benefits. There are a lot of people who feel the way that M. Hunt does, that there are incredible benefits. Microdosing is the new buzzword, to be sure, around psychedelics, especially ones that occur in nature. There's a culture now that feels shrooms and ayahuasca heal childhood trauma. They're like ceremonies. Kathy, there's a lot to that, and it's coming in, a couple of different formats or a couple of different ways that I was in. Obviously, most of you know that I lived in Nevada for about 20 years, and Nevada has set up trauma centers, and you see a lot of people in them that serve time. A lot of guys from our military, somewhere in the ballpark of 60 people every single month now end up taking their lives. People from military service, and they saw things that they can't handle, and they left friends there and they just can't handle it. And the last time we talked about this subject, I did a really big deep dive into some of the cutting edge treatment stuff. The reason we're seeing such a resurgence right now in psychedelics, and we are, make no mistake, if you listen to the biggest podcasts on the planet, you're going to hear the host very often talk about psychedelics, and they have on incredible guests that come on and talk about psychedelics. Actors and actresses have no problem coming out these days and saying, that this is a part of their life. Elon Musk apparently is pretty into the whole tripping, kind of an arrangement. Although apparently his choice of drugs run more to the manufactured than the naturally occurring. He's not a mushroom guy. Apparently he's super into MDMA and ketamine, I think, are the two drugs that he tends to do a lot. We're hearing now that people at places like Google and some of the really huge companies in Silicon Valley, it's just a very serious part of it's just a very serious part of the culture. One of the other things that, of course, people have always said is that psychedelics do incredible things for creativity. And for years, science had basically cut that down as a misnomer, that what really happens is you just feel so damn cool that you pick this up and you go, oh, the design on this is perfect. Like what they set out to do was so perfect. And you just end up becoming hyper-focused and enamored by all things that you come into contact with. So it's not so much that it stimulates creativity, but for a long time, the naysayers have said that, what it does instead is just create wonder in everything, and it makes us think that we're being more creative. But a test was done recently with a bunch of volunteers, by the way. They made a real point of stressing that these people all did this voluntarily. But some deep thinkers, people who were very into math questions, and these scientists were given math problems that had up to that point not had any, no one had figured out any of these. So these were unsolved, and I believe there was 50 altogether. It might have been 48, but it was either 48 or 50 problems altogether. And then what they did is they dosed these people, and they gave everyone an opportunity to work on these things. And these are the same people working on the same problems, but 45 of the pack ended up being solved. There definitely is something to the psychs were my childhood trauma. Interesting. Yep. M. Hunt, full of hope, has spent decades on wrestling with a pile of pharmaceuticals as well. She's recently gotten off a bunch of them. They're MK Ultra, says John Doe. Boy, there was definitely some heavy psychedelics used around the MK Ultra program, and I know at this point I'll get the email of somebody that talks about tinfoil hats or whatever. But I'll tell you something about that. And this is wildly off subject, but I don't care because we've got time to kill here on the lifeboat. And we don't have to stick to any tight schedules. But while I was incarcerated, every prisoner is allowed to use FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. And you can write for documents, but you can only do 2 of them a month. Maybe it wasn't 2, maybe it was 4. I don't remember, but there's a limit to how many that you can do each month. And the reason is obvious, because when these things get mailed in, sometimes they're 4 boxes, 5 boxes full of documents. It's, tinfoil hats, that's me. So while I was in there, we were on a lockdown at Victorville, and a guy said to me, he had shot a line over to my cell, and he said, "Do you do FOIA, Freedom of Information Act?" I said, "I do not do FOIA." And he said, "Can I use your ID number to get more stuff sent in this month?" And I said, "Sure." So he filled out all of the paperwork and just put my registration number, my federal inmate ID number on there so that he could double up on what he was ordering. But we were on a lockdown, and it turned out to be almost a half a year that we were on lockdown. And while on lockdown, they delivered the mail, and this mail got delivered to my cell, and the guy didn't know I had it, but all of a sudden I had all of this reading material, and MK Ultra was actually what he had written off to get Freedom of Information FOIA documents. And they're really heavily redacted, even when you get the stuff issued to you. It's remarkable just how much they redact the entire thing. But that said, they're really squirrels all over the place this morning, Ms. V, you're right. That said, MK Ultra was a real program, and we did a lot of really crazy stuff. But that sparked a thing, and that was 2 years into my last sentence. And I FOIA'd the whole time I was down. And a lot of times you get stuff that is just, you keep it for a night and you throw it out. You realize that it is scary what they did. Cheryl Niles, make no mistake. Wasn't LSD originally created by the CIA to interrogate prisoners? Not that the U.S. does that. And also for mind control to create Manchurian candidates. It is not what it was invented for, to be sure. Now, once it was synthesized, there were a lot of people in the military that saw potential in it for bad things, which is why every movie that ever has the military in it, you know what I mean? Like a superhero comes to the earth and, the military wants them instantly. Third Eye Spies, says Cheryl Niles. There was a lot of really, really fascinating stuff that I got over the years. While doing Freedom of Information stuff, while doing, now they're reading it for free. Now we give them all of our thoughts, and that's really an excellent point, John Doe. That's a really excellent point. Timothy Leary was a big proponent in the early days of LSD. He was not the inventor of it, but he sure as hell was a disciple of it. He was the former professor that said, "Tune in, drop out, fade away, get baked." I don't remember the exact quote, but it had something to do with dropping out and doing acid. The whole psychedelic subculture was a product of Crowley's teachings, Aleister Crowley's teachings. Stand for truth. It's not something at all that I'm aware of. Mr. Ray Ray says, I'm not the man that stares at goats, but I definitely have a lot of new chickens to stare at. Congratulations, Mr. Ray Ray. How many chickens do we have hatch altogether? Well, we all need some caution considering our age, John Doe. To be sure. All right, so that's where where I stand on the psychedelic thing. I think that there was a renaissance in our country with psychedelics and experimentation done on what it can do to benefit humanity. And sadly, drugs get a bad name more often than not because of drug users. And I think that when I think LSD has gotten a bad name over the years for a lot of reasons. But one of the really early smears that put a big stain on that was about Art Linkletter's daughter stepping out of a window on LSD and dying from it. Ian DeBow says, I did LSD 30 years ago. Not good. You know what? People do have, it goes one of two directions. People either have an experience that they think is profound and fantastic, or they have an experience that they do not like. I have, John Doe, go get your door. I have the vast majority. But when I finally tried mushrooms, there he is. I am a far bigger fan of psilocybin than I am of LSD. Ian DeBow says mushrooms were religious. It's funny, my thing with mushrooms is that I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with that drug, and I will sit here and be perfectly honest and tell everybody that that is a good joke. The Men in Black reference, John Doe, was a good one. I did a round of ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. I'll be damned. Was very well prepared and supported. Experience itself was unpleasant, but I had many positive takeaways. Goosebumps. That's fascinating. You're the first person I've talked to that has done ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. I have talked to a couple of people who have done psilocybin psychotherapy. I've talked to some people that have done that. Stand for Truth says, I've done more than my fair share of LSD and shrooms, and I believe it opens doors to the spiritual that we aren't supposed to open. Well, there are, you're not the first person that I've heard say that over the years. I'd actually like to do a heroic dose with psychotherapy with shrooms. I can understand why you would say that, Ian. Mushrooms smell like poop and taste like poop. I haven't ate poop, but Dennis doesn't need to eat poop to know that that is what mushrooms taste like. I suffer from anxiety. LSD is not a good option for me. It's funny that you say that because there really is something to that. Ketamine is really becoming a therapeutic drug here in the UK. I know that right now, psychedelics, the United States of America has changed. Laws have changed their stance. Everything about how psychedelics are being viewed currently in the U.S. has changed. Uh, they're going to be, my opinion and my prediction is that they're the next drug that we're going to see sold legally in this country is going to be mushrooms. I think that's. I'd love to try psilocybin in a therapeutic setting. I think. I think that of the psychedelics that I have done, the one that probably, in my opinion, psilocybin probably would be the most would in my life, in my experience, that would have had the most potential. Um, I I really I've had very very positive experiences on mushrooms. I've done shrooms and spent 4 or 5 hours in prayer, and actually really had a pretty amazing experience with the whole thing. That's beautiful. Full of Hope says, reading the Bible gives me all the visions I see. Holy men around the world have been saying almost that for centuries. People who are either so devout or so well studied or just so tuned in that they literally alter states, without the use of any drugs. And there's a lot of science to actually back up that happens in some very religious people. It's shown to alter brain chemistry, non-addicting. Ian, what are we talking about? Let me back up here. Are we still talking about psilocybin? Well, Anik, I think technically marijuana does fall under the psychedelic. I think it's the bottom of the rung for that. She said, "Shoot, I accidentally ate marinara with THC in it. Couldn't even handle that. Hours of mental discomfort. Would never ask for psychedelics." You know, yeah, please do. Full of hope. Uh, For many Indian tribes, especially in South America, psychedelics are used in religious ceremonies. Also shown on Drugs Inc. Yeah, there's some very cool stuff on that on Drugs Inc. There have been religions for millennia that have used psychedelics and heavy mind altering substances as part of their religious beliefs, and especially in part of their ceremonies. Um, it's such an interesting subject to me. The I read a study that had been done with returning soldiers and PTSD, and they were using. There were two different studies. One was using MDMA, was using ecstasy. Hey, Chris, peace to you and as well. And the other was using psilocybin. Interesting. What about DMT? I've tried psilocybin and LSD, but DMT, I'd say, although short lived, is an experience quite different and amazing than other psychedelics. I have done DMT, and this is just personal, anecdotal stuff, right? I did. I don't. I can completely understand why you say that. I did not have a very positive experience on DMT. I did not. It was not fun, and I realized that not all. I find it. I find it a little bit. I think I'm just into experiences that are less. I would have loved DMT when I was in my teens or 20s, but there were aspects to that drug that I found basically uncontrollable, and even in the midst of some pretty heavy experiences on other psychedelics, I've always sort of been able to at least keep things together. Yeah. Mr. Ray Ray makes a very intelligent statement. He says, another thing that scares me about hallucinogenics is that once you've taken them, you can't take them back. Good, bad, or ugly, you're stuck for the ride. It's really, it's funny you say that. I always, I remember getting that first hit of blotter that I was talking about at the beginning of the show. First time I'd ever done any LSD. And I had talked to an older guy. Probably 6-8 months later, I met a guy that was, well, at the time I thought he was a fossil. He's probably about the age I am now. But he was talking about, tripping and this and that. And, told me he was the first person I ever heard use the term blotter. But he said that he always viewed it as a ticket. Like you got that little piece of paper was your ticket to the next 8 to 10 hours. And no matter what happens, there's no taking anything back with that ticket. My neighbor popped half a stick of dynamite by my 4 weeks old room. I kind of lost it, not to mention my wife and other kids. Good Lord, Chris, that's terrifying. That's a good decision, Kathy. People? Oh, wow, that's a tough mix right there. Stand for truth. Taking two different taking mushrooms and acid at the same time could not have been a good experience. People, I am sorry to do this, but I just got a text from a family member. And I have a long-standing promise with family members that I will do exactly what I'm about to do. I love you all, and I will see you on the next lifeboat, but I got to take this. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. This was the lifeboat. Sorry, peeps. Love you.